What's going on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to a brand new episode of Caffeinate for March the 21st of 2019. My name is Samuel Adams, and welcome to today's show. I do hope that this one finds you well, and for those that are brand new to the podcast, this is a daily gaming news show where I bring you the hottest gaming news from around the industry, and today we have a lot of news from Nintendo because yesterday was the spring 2019 Nindies presentation, the Nintendo Indies show, where you got to see what some smaller creators are bringing to Nintendo's little handheld they could. I apologize, hybrid handheld. But of course, before we jump into all of the news of the day, this show is hosted 5 days a week on twitch.tv/TheSamuelAdams. It's then pulled down and put back up on YouTube and podcast services around the world, so find a platform you like and subscribe, because it's always a good show. Now, before we jump into it, you might be saying, Sam, why don't you have a tie on? Why don't you have the traditional kind of get up going today? I decided to go with the stepdad buying smokes look today, where you have this Goodwill-esque polo, and you get the collar unbuttoned a little bit, because we've got a lot to dive into today. Because Nintendo blew it out of the water, so we had to kind of loosen up the tie, had to go with a different look today. With that being said, audio listeners remain unaffected, which is fine. However, on top of the Nintendo Nindies 2019 presentation discussions, which we'll go into with 3 different stories because I wanted to focus on a couple of different things, we will talk more about Google Stadia because it is actually going to support the Xbox Adaptive Controller, which is a brand new story coming out of GDC. Epic is bringing its games to the Humble Bundle, which is going to be fantastic for those that like to buy through a third party. Metro Exodus launch sales on the Epic Games Store are 2.5 times higher than the launch of Last Light on Steam. Now, we'll talk more about why that might be a little bit misleading whenever it comes to being a title, but with that being said, still holds some relevance today. Of course, with the success of Epic Games, more and more developers and publishers are going to be bringing their titles to the Epic Games Store, which many have already signed on, and we'll talk more about that news from GDC. And with a rumor to round out the show, Walmart is reportedly getting in on a game streaming service similar to Stadia. Again, that's a rumor, but of course, we need to talk about that because, dang, that'd be pretty crazy. But that's pretty much the lineup for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show, and without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. So this is a summary article from BGR.com with everything Nintendo just revealed at the Spring 2019 Nindies Showcase, and they pretty much break it down bullet point by bullet point. First off, we had Cuphead. We'll talk more about Cuphead in a minute, but essentially Cuphead is an Xbox One/PC exclusive platformer with a very unique art style that came out a couple of years back, and, of course, now coming to the Nintendo Switch on April the 18th. Overland is a brand new game in which you take care of a group of travelers on a post-apocalyptic road trip across the US in this turn-based survival game coming this fall. My Friend Pedro, a game that has a fantastic display of GIFs on Twitter if you want to follow the official page, is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch in June. A very unique little game there. NeoCab is going to be coming to the Switch this summer, which is an emotional survival game about staying human in a world disrupted by automation. Sound familiar? No, surely not. The Red Lantern is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch, which is a roguelite resource management narrative game where you and your team of 5 sled dogs lost in the wilderness must navigate the ever-changing events of the Alaskan bush to find your way home. Darkwood is a horror game coming to the Switch in May, a very interesting new perspective in which you scavenge and explore the rich, ever-changing, free roam world by day and hunker down in your hideout and pray for the morning by light. And morning by night. Pray for the morning light. You know what I'm saying. Katana Zero is a very fashionable looking game coming to the Nintendo Switch. Very interesting one here, but it's a stylish neo-noir action platformer featuring breakneck action and instant death combat. Very cool looking game there. Rad is coming to us from Double Fine, a very cool looking kind of a strange post-apocalyptic world setting where humanity has faced Armageddon not once, but twice, and so you have to find a teenage protagonist who is rad. It's a cool looking game. More of one that you have to really see it to believe it and kind of understand what it is. But with that being said, the article, which I have linked down below the YouTube video, is full of all of these various kinds of trailers. Creature in the Well is a hack and slash dungeon crawler. Sounds very appealing, coming to the Switch this summer. Bloodroots is coming this summer as well, where the world is your weapon. Improvise and adapt to an ever-changing ballet of ultraviolence in an ultra-bloody revenge quest in a weird west. Pine is a strange little looking game with an action-adventure simulation take on the role of Hugh, a brave young adult who belongs to the last remaining tribe of humans in the island of Albemarle. I guess it's not Albemarle, but Albemarle. Super Crate Box on top of Nuclear Throne, also coming to the Switch. Vlambeer Arcade, a collection of arcade games, is going to be coming later on this year, which continues to grow and evolve. Swim Sanity is coming to the Switch, along with Blaster Master Zero, Stranger Things 3 the game, and Cadence of Hyrule, which is one that we will give a deeper dive in on. But that's pretty much everything that was announced during the Nindies Showcase. Of course, I focused on some more than others. It was a very large, jam-packed show, one that I encourage you to go back and look your kind of figure out what you want to look at specifically and give it a deep dive. But that was just kind of an overview. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the two biggest announcements from the show, because obviously we really want to dive into the meat of it. Cuphead is coming to the Nintendo Switch next month. That's massive. On top of that, Xbox Live features are coming via post-launch update. The Nintendo Switch version of Cuphead will receive its Xbox Live integration via a post-launch update, according to Microsoft. It's expected this will mean support for Xbox Live features such as gamer score, achievements, cloud saving, multiplayer, and leaderboards, though what exactly the game will get, we are yet to hear. But writing via the Xbox Wire blog, they go into more depth about the Xbox Live stuff, but let's talk about the game itself. Studio MDHR's gorgeous classic cartoon-inspired run-and-gunner Cuphead is coming to Switch on April the 18th, and there is a free update heading to all platforms too. Cuphead, which launched on Xbox One and PC in 2017, was initially announced to be an Xbox console exclusive, so its imminent arrival on the Switch is a welcome, if heavily rumored, occurrence. Here is the announcement trailer to 1. Mark the occasion, and 2. Remind us all how truly sumptuous the game really is. And of course, you can check that out if it's something that appeals to you. As on other platforms, Cuphead Switch supports both solo and co-op play, with Player 2 controlling Mugman, and Studio MDHR says it's currently working with Microsoft to investigate bringing Xbox Live features to the Switch version of Cuphead, which of course has since been confirmed and is actually happening. Those Switch owners eager to get on board with Cuphead's glorious, if rock-hard jump and shoot action can pre-order the game now on the eShop. Now, of course, they have also revealed that a new Cuphead update will be heading to PC and Xbox One alongside the Switch release. It brings oodles of new art and animations, including fully animated cinematics, and introduces the option to play as Mugman during solo play. And so all of this will be on the Switch version at launch, but if you did want to check out one of the biggest Xbox One/PC exclusive indies of the last 5 years, by all means, check it out on the Nintendo Switch, and I think it's going to be right at home on Nintendo's little handheld. A very cool looking trailer to begin with, where it essentially leads you in to the reveal of the two Cuphead and Mugman people being poured out into a glass. It's hilarious. But without a doubt, glad to see it coming to the Switch. I think it's going to be one that is very much so adding to Nintendo's catalog of not necessarily exclusives, but what is offered. I think it's a fantastic addition to the roster over there. Now, on top of that, you also have a game called Crypt of the Necrodancer, which of course came out a couple of years back, but the developers of that have now collaborated with Nintendo to create Cadence of Hyrule, and it's Legend of Zelda meets Crypt of the Necrodancer. Fantastic idea, one that I never would have thought of, but one that I'm very excited to see come into reality. Cadence of Hyrule was announced for the Nintendo Switch today, and it's a mashup of The Legend of Zelda and Crypt of the Necrodancer. Nintendo announced Cadence of Hyrule during its Nindies Spring Showcase today. The rhythmic action-adventure title from Brace Yourself Games brings the gameplay of Crypt of the Necrodancer to the Legend of Zelda series. So essentially, to back up, the way that this works is that within Crypt of the Necrodancer, there's a constant beat going, and it's always kind of like a synth house music kind of vibe. And so with each passing beat, you just mash a button, and you're pretty much moving to the rhythm, fighting to the rhythm, gathering stuff in a dungeon to the rhythm, that kind of thing. And so it's very much so a music-centric dungeon crawler in a way. A very cool game, one that's incredibly unique in so many ways. But now, of course, it has The Legend of Zelda being brought in via Cadence of Hyrule, which is essentially the same thing. Like, it's not trying to cover itself up as some kind of brand new, unique idea. It is Crypt of the Necrodancer cross Legend of Zelda, which, again, not complaining in the slightest. So now you can either play as Link or Princess Zelda while exploring a randomly generated overworld and dungeons on a quest to save Hyrule. The game includes 25 remixed Legend of Zelda tunes alongside modern-looking Lynels and Hyrulean soldiers of old. In order to strategically outstep enemies in rhythmic combat, an arsenal of iconic Legend of Zelda items will be at your disposal. Various spells and weapons from Crypt of the Necrodancer will also be available on your adventure, and of course you can check out the trailer, which is right here. And again, very cool looking thing we got going on here. So out of everything announced at the Nintendo Nindies Spring 2019 Showcase, I would say that Cadence of Hyrule is my favorite announcement. Of course, Cuphead coming to the Nintendo Switch is massive in so many ways, because that was one of the biggest exclusives for the Xbox One to date. And really still is, even though it's not technically exclusive anymore as of April the 18th. But when it comes to Cadence of Hyrule, it marries an incredibly unique idea from an indie developer with something like a, legendary, iconic franchise such as Legend of Zelda. And I think it really shows Nintendo's mindset going into the rest of the Nintendo Switch's lifespan and obviously beyond, where you do allow these, iconic foundational franchises that have helped build the gaming industry up to where it is today. You allow those to be used by indie companies and say, hey, bring in your new ideas, bring in something unique and do something new with what we have created over the years. And that's exactly what's happening here. It's these new experimental ideas that lay the foundation for where the gaming industry is going, and Crypt of the Necrodancer has always been a fantastic little indie game with a fantastic vibe, atmosphere. Music, of course, is phenomenal, but I cannot wait to see what they do within the world of The Legend of Zelda. Of course, it looks gorgeous. I love the appearance of the game, and I cannot wait to see more about it. And I will say that as somebody who had a Nintendo Switch at launch and ended up selling it because I didn't use it enough, it's an announcement like this, and it's the success of stuff like even Tetris 99, where you have these brand new ideas, these unique ideas that are exclusive to the Nintendo Switch, and it is so enticing to me to go back and buy a Nintendo Switch again because these games are fantastic. These are not happening on any other platform, and so it's one of those situations where Nintendo is quite frankly and blatantly killing it. Like, they are just doing so well when it comes to the Nintendo Switch, especially with its indie front. Now, of course, AAA games are abundant over there if you do want to check out what AAA offerings they have. But when it comes to Nindies, they have killed it this generation because they have successfully transferred the title of Home for Indies from PlayStation to Nintendo. That's essentially what's been done. It is nuts because originally, back in the day, whenever Xbox Live had the Xbox Live Summer of Arcade, that's where most of the big indies came from. And then that transitioned over to PlayStation whenever the console generation began to switch. And now with the Switch, ironically, you have a brand new home for where many indie developers can really hit a huge audience and one that's growing day by day. So, of course, the Nintendo Switch entire presentation is up on YouTube if you do want to check that out. But without a doubt, impressive stuff they showed off yesterday and stuff that I cannot wait to see more on as 2019 rolls on. But with that being said, let's move on from Nintendo and talk about Google Stadia briefly, because a big announcement has come out that Google Stadia will support the Xbox Adaptive Controller, Microsoft's accessible device included among third-party controllers on Google's platform that, of course, will be supported. Google Stadia will launch with its own custom input hardware, but Microsoft has confirmed that it will also support the Xbox Adaptive Controller. When Google VP Phil Harrison unveiled Stadia's gamepad at GDC this week, he focused on a handful of its unique features, notably a direct link to Google Assistant, which will help players overcome challenging sections in games. However, the Stadia gamepad will still present the same difficulties as all traditional controllers to certain gamers, such as those with restricted mobility. Google has clearly recognized this issue, and Stadia will support the Xbox Adaptive Controller from day one. Microsoft unveiled the Adaptive Controller in May of 2018 and has been widely commended for its effort to be more inclusive towards those who find games difficult to access. Speaking on Twitter, the inclusive lead at Microsoft Devices, Bryce Johnson, commended Google for its decision to support the Adaptive Controller so early in Stadia's launch process. Please consider enabling the co-piloting of these devices, Johnson said to his Twitter followers. It will really help gamers with limited mobility a lot. And so this is a fantastic step forward because, of course, the Xbox Adaptive Controller took years of research and development to make it into a reality. And for those that have not seen it, it was one of the biggest technical achievements of the gaming industry in 2018 because it literally allows anybody to create their own controller in a way based off of a set of tools that's given via the Xbox Adaptive Controller. If you can't reach something, if you just are unable to achieve a certain task when it comes to smashing a button or using an analog stick, you can change the schematics of the system around to whatever fits your needs and really create an experience that's tailored to you that still allows you to access the games that so many other people are playing and be good at them at that. So with that being said, to see Google supporting this so early on with Stadia is something that should be commended, and it's really something that I wish more and more, platforms would accept, that you're not going to be able to maintain this boundary as we've had in years past, where you have a division between PlayStation and Xbox. You have a division between Xbox and Nintendo Switch. You have a division between all of these and stuff like Google Stadia. The end goal is to make games accessible and to make games fun for everybody to experience. That's what makes the gaming industry special, is that everybody can enjoy these experiences and can dive into these worlds that developers create. And so to have that accessibility available industry-wide, that's available via the Xbox Adaptive Controller, is something that I think is fantastic and something that I wish more and more people would get behind. But as for right now, Stadia is definitely shaping up to be something. If it's going to be a good platform, that's yet to be seen, but without a doubt, it's cool to see it's adopting the Xbox Adaptive Controller this early on. Now, with that being said, let's talk about another platform, which is a little bit different, admittedly, but Epic is bringing its games to the Humble Bundle. So, of course, we're talking about the Epic Game Store. You'll soon be able to buy Epic exclusives through Humble Bundle thanks to a partnership between the two companies. Epic and Humble Bundle's partnership goal, in addition to raising money for charity, is to create more opportunities for developers to sell their games, including Epic exclusives. It also increases Humble's ability to raise money for charitable organizations. Since its inception, Humble has raised over $145 million for charity, co-founder John Graham said. The partnership brings a one-click keyless redemption flow, something Humble says developers and customers have been clamoring for. Epic announced the Epic Games Store at the end of last year, promising an 88-12 revenue split for developers, and it also said it wouldn't take any profit from games made with Unreal Engine, something it reiterated during its GDC keynote this morning. GDC 2019 is underway in San Francisco this week, and yesterday Google unveiled its game streaming platform, and of course many other people have been unveiling tons of other stuff, but to see the adoption of Humble Bundle as a way to access Epic games is something that I think is fantastic, because it's always good to allow third parties into the mix. And although third parties like, Green Man Gaming, and although third parties like G2A aren't included in this, you do have Humble being pretty much the most well-known third party out there outside of stuff like Steam, and it, you know what I'm saying. If you buy a game on PC, there is a high likelihood that you have heard of and that you have gone through Humble Bundle in the past. Also, it's very reputable, and on top of that, it is a charitable organization helping organization, if that makes sense to you. So to see Epic really adopting Humble Bundle as a way to access their games is something that I think is fantastic. Of course, interesting to see that it's going to be platform-wide, or at least storefront-wide, so if you do want to buy third-party games that are being hosted on Epic Games Store, you can actually buy them through Humble Bundle, and of course, it's an Inception kind of setup, but it's good to see, and one thing that I think is definitely going to help the industry and help Epic going forward. So without a doubt, if you do want to dive in and check out what Humble Bundle has to offer, it's without a doubt one of the best ways to get games in the gaming industry, because number one, it's easy, and number two, it helps charities. So I mean, you can't really go wrong with that, am I right? I'm right. Again, $145 million to date raised through Humble, and that is something that is absolutely fantastic. Without a doubt, worth checking out. But before we move on, Gamma, what's going on? Let's go ahead and dive into Metro Exodus sales on the Epic Games Store, which are 2.5 times higher at launch than Last Light on Steam. So again, we'll read through the article and then break down what this is actually saying. Sounds like the move from Steam to the Epic Games Store was a gamble that paid off for Metro Exodus. Exodus has done rather well as an Epic Games Store exclusive. It has already sold more copies than Metro Last Light did on Steam during launch week. During its State of Unreal presentation at GDC 2019, Epic announced sales of Metro Exodus were 2.5 times higher than that of Last Light during the same reporting period. It's unknown whether pre-purchased sales were taken into account on the Exodus figure. figures. Deep Silver never provided sales data for the previous title, but in the US alone, the game surpassed lifetime retail sales of Metro 2033 in its first week. However, the firm did provide 2015 data for the Metro Redux collection, which included Last Light and its predecessor 2033, and it sold over 1.5 million. In addition, Epic also announced that both Subnautica and Slime Rancher each exceeded 4.5 million downloads in their 2-week runs as free offerings on the store. And of course, when something's free, people go out of their way to absolutely get that in their buggies. But with that being said, we will talk more about the latter part of this story in just a moment. But I think this is a little bit misleading because Metro Exodus in and of itself had more marketing. Metro Exodus was a more widely known game as compared to stuff like Last Light in 2033 because gaming has grown since Last Light came out. And so whenever you consider that, you have to understand that although the Epic Game Store and that exclusivity probably did play a part in the success of Metro Exodus, it's not going to be one of the biggest parts of the success of Metro Exodus. I think that's something to really take into account and to remember whenever we're talking about this, because the industry has shifted, and with marketing and with word of mouth and with social media, Metro Exodus was getting a pretty good amount of press just before it launched. So to say that it's directly because of the Epic Games Store that it's seeing the success is probably a little bit off, but without a doubt something that will help. And so with this success, a lot more companies are going to be paying attention to what Epic is trying to do with their brand new game platform. Remedy, Quantic Dream, and other devs sign on for Epic Game Store exclusives. And of course, this is all news coming to us from GDC. In the midst of Epic's State of Unreal briefing at GDC, the company confirmed plans to bring a bunch of old and upcoming games to its Epic Game Store, including exclusives from devs like Remedy, Quantic Dream, and more. This is a big deal because Epic seems to be ramping up its efforts to compete with Steam and other storefronts by wooing developers to the Epic Game Store. Notable devs who have committed to relaunching or launching their upcoming PC games as Epic Game Store exclusives, at least initially, include Remedy Entertainment, which is of course Control, Brace Yourself Games, Industries of Titan, and Heart Machine, of course, of Solar Ash fame. Ubisoft and Quantic Dream have also agreed to bring a number of their already released games to the Epic Store, which is a big deal since this will be the first time that Quantic Dream's last 3 games, Beyond Two Souls, Heavy Rain, and Detroit Become Human, will be officially playable on PC. In addition to the games already mentioned, the following titles are now slated to release exclusively on the Epic Games Store. You've got After Party from Night School Studios, The Cycle from Jaeger, Dauntless from Phoenix Labs, Journey to the Savage Planet, Typhoon Studios and 505 Games, Kind from Chump Squad, Phoenix Point from Snapshot Games, The Sinking City from Frogwares and Big Ben, and Spellbreak from Proletariat Incorporated. Now, of course, The Outer Worlds is also going to be launching on the Epic Games Store, but it will also be on the Windows 10 Store as well. But with that being said, The Outer Worlds, one of my most anticipated games of the rest of 2019. So with all of that being said, what does this mean? It means that developers are now paying attention, and publishers are paying attention as well. And to see this kind of move in the industry, to see this kind of adoption of the Epic Game Store is something that I knew was coming, but I think it kind of, came quickly as compared to what I actually expected, because to see all these big games coming out as exclusives to the Epic Games Store, I mean, to take a step back and think about Quantic Dream releasing 3 of their biggest games, their 3 biggest games, on PC, that, in my mind, a year ago would have been a Steam decision, like immediately. Like, you put that stuff out on Steam and people will play it because people want to play stuff like Beyond Two Souls. People want to play Heavy Rain. People want to play Detroit Become Human on PC, and Steam would have been the way to do that. But now, with the Epic Games Store and that split being 88 and 12, I believe is what it was originally planned to be and what it still is, it's incredible to see the amount of adoption and the amount of acceptance from the gaming industry, and it is pretty nutty. And as Gammo says in the chat, Steam needs to react to this competition quickly. Without a doubt, changes need to be made, but with that being said, I don't know that changes will be made. To be quite honest with you, I think that Steam is still sitting pretty when it comes to their spot in PC gaming culture, and I think that they don't feel compelled to make big changes immediately. I think that although these big games are coming to the Epic Games Store, that's just part of the shifting of the industry. Steam will always have money, in my opinion. Like, it's not like Steam and Valve and all of the companies surrounding that little entity are going to be shutting down anytime soon. I think that competition in any industry is incredibly healthy, and I think that competition and genuine competition at that is something that is a necessity when it comes to every industry, but specifically within the gaming industry, these pillars rise up over the years and become unstoppable forces that really should be stopped. I mean, if Steam had maintained dominance, which arguably it still does, you would be seeing a very different gaming industry, especially on the PC front going forward. So to see Epic coming in and changing the game, to see even Google coming in with Stadia and disrupting at least even the discussion around consoles, around where the industry is today, that changes things. And that's whenever you're going to see an evolution of the industry that allows it to become something new, something fresh, and something that is a palate cleanser of sorts that really does kind of prime the entire world for what gaming has to bring over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that's incredibly exciting, at least from my perspective. So with that being said, if you do want to check out the Epic Game Store, tons of stuff out there right now, tons of free games over the course of the last month or so, but very excited to see where all of this goes. Now, Gamma has a good point. This is just a power play for them to make Half-Life 3. Smart man. Smart man. Now, to wrap up today's show, we have a rumor that Walmart is exploring its own game streaming service. The retail giant may follow in the footsteps of Google's Stadia. Walmart has been in discussions with developers and publishers about its own game streaming service, a new US Gamer report suggests. According to multiple anonymous sources speaking to the site, the US retail giant has conducted meetings concerning a possible streaming platform throughout 2019 and as this year's GDC, which is currently underway in San Francisco. While no further concrete details are currently available, it's in keeping with the retailer's ongoing move into the digital space, offering web-integrated services in a bid to compete with Amazon's behemoth company. The company even explored the possibility of a Netflix-style TV streaming service before abandoning it in favor of expanding its pay-per-view Vudu service, which of course that went well, didn't it? It did not. The news comes after Google's unveiling of Stadia on Monday, a cloud streaming service which can support 4K resolutions and smooth 60 FPS frame rates. So will Walmart break into the gaming industry via a streaming platform? Probably not. I think that if there is any kind of foundation to these rumors, if there is anything to actually back these up, I believe that this is probably going to go the way of the Netflix-style subscription service that Walmart was exploring and probably die before anything really comes of it. I think that Walmart is a giant global powerhouse when it comes to many, many industries, and of course when it comes to the retail industry. But when it comes to other parts of other industries, I think that it just doesn't have a spot at the table. It doesn't have a seat at the table, so to speak. There's just no reason for Walmart to get into this. And so if you are given the opportunity to select where you buy your games and where you play your games, are you going to choose, if you are looking at streaming platforms, Google Stadia, which of course Google has stake in the online and entertainment industry, or are you going to choose Walmart, whatever that may be? Of course, if they make a new company that maybe this entire infrastructure and this entire concept is housed under, that could potentially change things. But again, how deep do they want to go into this? So again, as of right now, this is all just a rumor, but an interesting rumor that I thought we would mention on today's show. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on that in the comment section down below. But with that being said, that wraps up today's episode of Caffeinate. If you did enjoy today's show, be sure to drop me a like down below. And of course, if you happen to be hanging out in the chat, I appreciate you being here. And I always love hosting the show 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time over on twitch.tv/TheSamuelAdams. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of the day. I will talk to you soon, and peace.